My dad, he was away in Philadelphia area for a conference that he was speaking at. So I guess I was the chosen one. But yeah, I'm grateful for it. But yeah, so here we are. I'll be reading from I'm used to reading out of Psalms in the mornings. From 1 Samuel 15 we'll be reading. So let's just dive right in. Samuel also said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord." So just starting off here in verse 1, the Lord is telling Samuel to tell Saul that, you've been chosen as king, and, now it's time to step up to the plate and, do what he's calling you to do. He's already got a mission for you, so. And I think there's a great application there for us as well, seeing how we've also been chosen by him. And, like Saul, we also have missions that we're called to. So I think there's a great parallel there to King Saul and his position and our position right here, right now, as Christians, is very similar. Moving on to verse 2, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from I'm sorry, I think I misread. I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." Sounds pretty harsh, right? Have no regard for anything that they have, whether it's human life or animals, anything. So, it seems harsh, but you think about it, you kill off, say you just kill off the men, that doesn't mean that another generation won't rise up and do the same thing that the men you killed wouldn't have done, So you have to kill everyone, and especially when the Lord tells you to, you have to do what he says. And that's what Saul is being called to do. Moving on to verse 4. "So Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley." So far, seems like Saul is doing what he's being told to, right? God told him to, go on this mission to attack the Amalekites, and we read in my goodness, again, 1 Samuel 15:4 that here's Saul rounding up his troops, to go on that mission, and it seems like to me when I read this in verse 5, "And Saul came to a city of Amalek and lay in wait in a valley," it's kind of like the Israelites are ambushing the Amalekites, same as like how the Israelites were ambushed, which I, feel like that's kind of intentional. But, so in verse 6, it says, "Then Saul said to the Kenites, Go depart, get down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt." So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. At least Saul is showing some grace. The Kenites had nothing to do with any ambush or anything malicious against the Israelites. So Saul is saying, like, you better leave or else you will get killed. So the Kenites leave, and eventually it seems that the Amalekites did fall into the Israeli trap. As we read in verse 7, and Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. He also took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. So it started off that he was doing what he was supposed to, but he wasn't supposed to spare anyone. But here in verse 8, it says that he spared King Agag. I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't exactly specify why Agag was spared, but apparently he was. So, sorry, I lost my spot. Verse 9, but Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwilling to utterly destroy them. But everything despised and worthless, that they utterly destroyed. So they spared the king. They spared all this cattle that apparently must have been valuable. But it's kind of telling that they destroyed the women and children. And, obviously most of the men except for Agag. And it says that they destroyed everything that was worthless. So apparently the women and children were worthless, is what I get out of this, is how Saul viewed this. So that's definitely interesting. But moving on to verse 10, now the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I greatly regret that I have set up Saul as king, for he has turned back from following me, and has not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried out to the Lord all night. So here the Lord tells Samuel what's happened, what Saul has done, and evidently, this is like heartbreaking to Samuel that, the Lord told him to go on this mission and to fulfill what the Lord had said, and he didn't do it. So you can imagine that, since Samuel was the one that anointed king over Israel, that would really be that would be hard. That'd be difficult. And it says that he was grieved and that he was crying out to the Lord all night. Most likely, I would think, probably crying out for mercy on Saul. And of course, obviously he didn't deserve it, but also when we don't do what God says, when we fall short, when we compromise, it's the same thing. We don't deserve grace or mercy or any of that. It's just a sad situation. Moving on to verse 12. So when Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Saul, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul went to Carmel, and indeed he set up a monument for himself, and he has gone on around, passed by, and gone down to Gilgal. So Saul has, after this great victory, as he would see it, he's gone to all these different places, but notably he stopped in Carmel and made himself a monument, as if he did something so great, as if it was some great victory and that it's all his. Why is he making a monument for himself? Why is he putting himself up so high, as if it was him in the first place? Any victory that we have, it's not on our own, with our own ability, but it's all because of God. And that's important to realize whenever any achievement is gained or anything like that. So it's definitely important to, not be prideful and start to get too full of yourself, because once you do, you gotta think that you're wrong automatically. But picking up in verse 13, it says, "Then Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, 'Blessed are you of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord.' But Samuel said, 'What then is this bleating of sheep in my ears, and the lowing of oxen which I hear?'" So Saul is like, "Hey, look, you're the guy I want to see. Look at what I've done. I've done what God told me to." But Samuel is like, "Then what's this? Why do I hear sheep? Why do I hear the lowing of oxen? It sounds to me like you haven't done what God told you to do." Like it's evident right from the start that Saul hasn't done what he was called to do. In verse 15, and Saul said, "They have." Sorry, am I? Yeah, 15. "And Saul said, 'They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed.'" So Saul's trying to give out a quick explanation for why not everything's destroyed. And he ends up shifting the blame to the people instead of taking accountability for his own actions, because he's the king. He very, very easily could have just done what was right after he saw what was wrong that was done by the people. If that's probably not even the truth, because when there's lies, you try to cover it up by possibly by blaming others, or trying to talk it down as if it's not that bad, or just some kind of justification. And this is what we see Saul doing right here, by blaming the people for sparing the sheep and the oxen. But then it's kind of interesting how he tries to justify the. I don't know if he's trying to justify the people or if he's still trying to justify himself, but he says that the cattle was saved to sacrifice to the Lord your God, which I was talking with my dad before he left for Philadelphia, and he had pointed out this portion of Scripture in Mark 7. If you would please turn in your Bibles there. To Mark 7. My dad had told me about this account, but I guess we'll read it now. Then the Pharisees, starting in verse 5, then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands?" And he answered and said to them, "Well did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do.' He said to them, 'All too well, you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, Honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, Whatever profit you might have received from me is Corban, that is, a gift to God.' Verse 12, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God of no effect through your tradition which you have handed down, and many such things you do." When he had called all the multitude to himself, he said to them, "Hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man." So, all that for context's sake, what I really wanted to touch on was verse 11, where it says, "But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is Corban, that is a gift to God." That was interesting to me because, well, if I could just explain it real quick, it's basically saying that, well, I'm sorry, like if a son is talking to his mother or father, and they're in need, and he's like, "Well, I'm sorry, I sacrificed my funds to the Lord. I can't help you. There's nothing I can do. Oh well, shoot." Like, that's not, that's not right. To try to say that your gift to God, use your gift to God as a justification why you can't be a help. That's just so wrong, because you're not using your offering to the Lord as it should be. It's not with a sincere heart. It's all just a justification, and that's what we see Saul doing here, justifying why he didn't kill all the Amalekites, because it was, because he wanted to sacrifice to the Lord. That's why he didn't, kill all the oxen and the sheep and all that. Why he didn't destroy everything, because he thought that, God told me to do this, but hey, I think my plan is better, because that's going to make God happy with me. Because if I'm offering to him, that's like earning brownie points with him. So if I do that, isn't that better than killing everything? Isn't that better than obeying fully? But yeah, I mean, that's obviously not correct, because we'll read a few verses more about this. Then Samuel, picking up in verse 16, then Samuel said to Saul, "Be quiet, and I will tell you what the Lord has said to me, what the Lord said to me last night." And he said to him, "Speak on." So Samuel said, "When you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel? And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, 'Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed.' Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord?" And Saul said to Samuel, "But I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and brought back Agag, king of Amalek. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal." So Samuel said, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." So, going back to verse 16, it's kind of like Samuel's getting tired. It seems like he's getting tired of hearing Saul talk. He's like, "All right, shut up. I've heard you speak. Now listen to what the Lord has to say." And then it was kind of interesting to me how he talks of Saul when he was, smaller in his own sight, before he, as it seemed, became too prideful. He was still ruling Israel, and it just seems like over time he became all high and mighty and stuff in his own sight. And so he thinks that he knows better than God, since God told him to completely wipe out the Amalekites and he didn't do it. And it's also interesting to me how he says in, sorry, I lost it. yeah, in verse 20, how he says that he brought back Agag, king of the Amalekites, as if that was some great achievement. Um, and like the Lord, he told Saul to completely destroy everything, and yet here he is sparing the king. Like, why? Why would you spare the person with the most power in in that nation? You know, that doesn't make any sense. And he's pretty much boasting about it and saying that look, I did what the Lord told me to. I brought back King Agag. That's the complete opposite of what he was told to do. And then, I think I might be backtracking a little bit, but it says here that he blames the people again for sparing the all the good cattle and stuff, and he's blaming them again, just being a blame shifter, as if he does everything right and that none of it is his fault. And he goes back to saying that all of that was spared as to use as a sacrifice to the Lord. But I really like what Samuel says in verse 22, where he says, "Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams." So Samuel's basically just saying, you're actually wrong. It's better to obey. That makes me think of that children's ministry song that says, I'm losing it now. It's basically saying that obeying is the best way to show that we believe. And it's definitely true, because if you're obeying the Lord, you can't go wrong. And it really just seems here that Saul was trying to get all the riches and plunder all the good stuff, all the spoils, and just trying to fill his own pockets, and just it's not even like he was doing anything for the Lord. It's all for himself, all selfish. Moving on to verse 23, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because you have rejected the word of the Lord. He also has rejected you from being king." That's pretty deep, saying that rebellion is the sin of rebellion is next to witchcraft, and to say that rebellion is next to idol worship, that's quite heavy, because I mean, that's just ridiculous, because I don't even know how to explain, but that's just so deep. But yeah, then it also says that because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he also has rejected you from being king. To be rejected of the Lord, that would be terrible. It's just like when you eventually pass away and then you go to heaven. Well, you get to the judgment where you are decided whether you either go to heaven or ultimately you go to hell. To be rejected of the Lord and sent to hell, I can't even imagine. I don't think anyone can really imagine. That's something that I never want to have to experience. The rejection. And just being rejected as king, that doesn't compare to to being rejected from heaven. Like, that doesn't even compare. But that's still sad. Picking up in verse 24, then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. So here's Saul, finally fessing up to what he did wrong. And just being like, you know what, you're right. What I did was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, that's my bad. I feared the people. I feared what they would think about me. I just I wanted to do what they wanted, but it's so much better to listen to the Lord than to listen to what people say, because as I'm sure you've learned by now, people will let you down. What they say isn't always true. The Lord won't ever let you down. What he says is true. And just listening to him is, definitely the best thing you can do in any situation. But then he continues in verse 25 by saying, now therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me that I may worship the Lord. So he goes from being like, you know what, yeah, you're right, I sinned. Please forgive me, but, anyway, let's go praise the Lord. Let's just sweep that little mistake under the rug and, do what I should do, and just, pretend like that never happened. Will you come worship the Lord with me? But Samuel in verse 26 says, it says, but Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned around to go away, Saul seized the edge of the robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. So Samuel tells him no. Samuel says that he will not, indulge this behavior by sweeping the sin under the rug of, what Saul did. And so he's like, no, I'm out of here. See you later. And so he turns from Saul, and Saul grabs his robe and tears it. In verse 28, it says, so Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. I can imagine in my head, how Samuel just, that just sets him off, and he's like, just like how you tore my robe, the kingdom of Israel is torn from your hands. And, it's going to be given to a neighbor of yours. Sorry to break the secret, but it's David. He says that it's going to be a neighbor of yours who's better than you that's going to take your crown, take your kingdom. Moving on to verse 29, it says, and also the strength of Israel will not lie nor relent, for he is not a man that he should relent. That's kind of interesting. Who do you think Samuel is speaking of? Who is the strength of Israel? Who is he talking about? God, right? Yeah. He's talking about how it's not like Israel lives and dies with Saul. No, the Lord is still going to work. The Lord is he's not going to give up on Israel, because Israel is his chosen people, and he's still his chosen people to this day. He's still protecting them, protecting the Israelites. Moving on to verse 30, it says, then he said, I have sinned, yet honor me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me that I may worship the Lord your God." So Saul's just going he's just repeating like a broken record. Like back in verse 24 is talking about how or excuse me, in 25 it's talking about how Saul, he had admitted that he sinned the verse before, but in verse 25 he's saying, "Forgive me, and let's just go serve the Lord together." And he's doing the same thing here in verse 30, where he says, "I have sinned, yet honor me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me that I may worship the Lord your God." And this guy Saul is such a man pleaser. All he cares about is how people think about him. You'd think that he would have gotten the message that it doesn't matter what people think. You're saying that it was the people that made you do this. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. But now you're trying to still please those people. Have you learned anything? Is he even hearing Samuel at this point? And graciously it says in verse 31, "So Samuel turned back after Saul, and Saul worshipped the Lord." So it seems here that Samuel, did what he did Saul's request. He's like, "You know what? Fine. I'll whatever makes you happy, because apparently, obviously you're not hearing what I'm saying. So, whatever. Might as well do what you want for one last time." In verse 32 it says, "Then Samuel said, Bring Agag, king of the Amalekites, here to me. So Agag came to him cautiously, and Agag said, Surely the bitterness of death is past. But Samuel said, As your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal." So Agag, Samuel draws near to him and is like, Agag's just like, "Okay, so I'm not going to die. I'm all good. I'll be all right." But Samuel is just on the contrary, actually, and just hacks him. Totally, just wipes him out, like how Saul should have done. Ultimately, Samuel does what Saul should have done. And in that, the desire of the will of the Lord was still fulfilled, even in Saul's sin. But it says in verse 34, "Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went to his house in Gibeah of Saul. And Samuel went no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel." So after Samuel has done what Saul wanted him to, go and honor him before the elders of Israel and worship the Lord and all that. After that, Samuel never goes to see Saul after that ever again, which is that's just sad. Yeah, it says that they parted ways. The interpretation of mine is that it's basically saying that they parted ways. Samuel going to his house in Ramah, and Saul to his house in Gibeah. I can't comprehend if what Saul did breaks Samuel's heart, can you even imagine how the Lord feels? And it's not like this stuff was just happening way back then in this account. It happens every day. It's happened every day since this account. And obviously no one's perfect, but And there is the opportunity for forgiveness. And you see that Saul was asking for forgiveness, but he was only looking for forgiveness to get out of the situation. He wasn't really wanting to, own up to what he did wrong. He was only trying to get out of it. Yeah, I think the main takeaway here is, to fully obey, to not just go halfway in doing what you think is right, because when that happens, you're basically saying that you know better than God, and that, that you don't need to listen to anything He says, because, I guess I know everything when I do that, and in that, it's also good to not compromise. No compromising is certainly a benefit to our Christian walk. Because Saul certainly compromised, and we all compromise every day. Every time that we sin, we're compromising. But again, it's certainly a blessing to have the forgiveness and the grace and the mercy of the Lord, because just like His love, it's unconditional. He's always gonna love, no matter what. But yeah, full obedience and no compromising. Yeah, I guess that's what I have for you tonight. Are there any questions or comments?